Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter. Boom, 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 bam, review stuff. And I am back for another television review today. And today I'm going to review a new series on Netflix called Pepsi, Where's My Jet? And this is a series that I didn't know anything about. Flips. I didn't know anything about and didn't expect to watch. And in fact, the other night I was trying to work myself through the third series of Manifest, which, by the way, I will be doing a full review when it is completely finished. They put out the first part of season 4, the finale season, just recently, and they're putting the end out next June of 2023. So when the series is completed, I will be putting out a full review. But I'm absolutely loving Manifest. I've gotten so many people that have said to me that they think it's corny, they think it's stupid. I actually think that each season just builds on the next and gets better and better and better. So I was watching Manifest, but I was like making some dinner this weekend. My husband was out of town in Miami for his cousin's birthday. And so I was making some dinner and I was like, I like to sit down and watch something that I can kind of like watch in one setting while I'm eating. And that means usually like 30 to 40 minutes or Game Show Network. Like I'm obsessed with Game Show Network. I love to watch Pyramid and Family Feud and whatever. So I wanted to watch something that was kind of like documentary style. And if you've watched any of my channels for a while, you know that I love anything that's like true crime, anything that's like a true story, anything. I love all of that, right? So I got on Netflix and I was like looking through there and there was this new series that was trending called Pepsi, Where's My Jet? And I was like, what is this and why is it trending and why have I not heard of it? And so it's this documentary. Hold on a second. I'm going to read you the synopsis. And the synopsis says, 7 million Pepsi points to win a fighter jet? It should have been impossible. But 20-year-old John Leonard sees the ad in 1995 and finds a loophole. Okay, so it's a 4-part series. It's actually really, really quick to watch. I think like each episode, let's look and see. Each episode is really short. The first one is 38 minutes, next one's 44. The third episode is 37 minutes, and the last one's 42. And it's about this kid that's 20 in 1995, and his name is John Leonard. And he is going to a junior college. And he sets his sights on doing really great things in the world, right? And at that time, like he's very interested in travel. He's very interested in climbing and climbing mountains. And that's like something that he's really, really interested in, right? And so he wants to figure out a way that he can make a lot of money so that he can continue to kind of like source out this lifestyle that he wants, right? I mean, I think we all thought that way at 20 or 50. I still think that way, you know? So anyway, Pepsi at the time, so the whole thing starts talking about how like Pepsi and Coke are these grand competitors. And they talk about the Pepsi Coke challenge, which is so weird because I remember that from like growing up and going to the grocery store and, like they would have the little cups and then you could try them and whatever. What's so interesting to me about this is throughout the whole series, they have a lot of people try like that are like main parts of the story, like John Leonard and then like this other guy, Todd Hoffman, that's his financer, partner, friend, and who's like just a phenomenal person, character in the story. And then like the attorney and then who is Stormy Daniels' attorney. And then his like John Leonard's mom. And they have like all these people that are big parts of the story. Even like the executives at Pepsi do the Pepsi Coke challenge. And it's so interesting like how many of them like are surprised by their response. As a person that drinks soda, but like I'll drink Diet Pepsi, but I don't like, and I'll drink Diet Coke, but I don't like Pepsi at all. I can tell you, guaranteed, I should actually do this on video, this would be so funny. I can guarantee that if I did the Pepsi Coke challenge today, I could, without a doubt, tell you which one was Pepsi and which one was Coke. I don't feel like there is much of, like, I feel like there's such a distinction between the two that I was kind of surprised in watching it that so many of them were surprised by their own answer. So anyway, but that was kind of like the background thread of this whole thing. So they go in and they talk about the Pepsi Coke challenge and like the competition between Pepsi and Coke. They have like Cindy Crawford in there who was like the model for Pepsi and all this kind of stuff. And that the marketing of Pepsi towards the Pepsi generation was really what got Pepsi at that time to the top of their game. So they came out with this advertisement, and in the advertisement, oh, by the way, I forgot to say this in my last video, I will be spoiling this entire series for you. So this is a spoiler video, okay? I'll put it in the title. But anyway, I'll put it in the title, I'll put it in the description box. But anyway, so they came out with this advertisement, and the advertisement was very much targeted towards like teenage and younger kids, because there's a lot of teenagers and younger kids, and they're in school and other places that then would want their parents to buy this, the Pepsi products, right? And it was showing that for all of these Pepsi products that you bought, you got so many points. This is very similar to like Marlboro points, Camel coupons, things like that. And for as many points as you got and added up, you could buy products in this catalog. Well, at the very end of the commercial, they showed this fighter jet. I can't remember what it's called. I can't believe after as many times as they talked about this jet, I can't, the herring jet or something with an H. Anyway, they show this kid landing in front of his school in this fighter jet, okay? The problem was, you know when you watch the ads on TV and they have like, you know, the 15 different like lines of, you know, legal jargon and all that kind of stuff. There was none of that, right? That said that they were just joking or that this was just, you know, in jest or whatever. And it said for 7 million points, you could get this. I think it's a herring jet is what it was called, something like that. That Hewing jet, herring jet, I don't know. That you could win this herring jet. So this guy, John Leonard, at 20 years old, starts doing the math, and he starts figuring out how he's going to do it. Starts buying all his Pepsi, and his parents are drinking Pepsi, and they realize that it would take them 100 years or 100 years at drinking like 100 cans of Pepsi a day to like get enough of these things, right? So he starts doing the math, and he's like trying to figure out like how he can come up with the money and the backing to do this. And so he reaches out to this guy named Todd Hoffman, who is this very kind of like beatnik, hippie-ish, zen guy that is very, very cool. It seems to me that he must come from some money as well. That's just my 2 cents watching the show. But he has like spent much of his time traveling around the world. He as well likes to climb mountains. He and John Leonard climb mountains through this entire thing. The show ends with them climbing Mount Everest. And he's very, very cool. And so he, like John Leonard goes to him to talk to him and propose this. And you can tell that like Todd Hoffman takes on this, I think his name's Hoffman. Todd takes on this parental kind of mentor role of like, I'm going to help you learn how to build a business plan and all this kind of stuff, but really not with any idea that this is ever going to happen. And so John Leonard puts together this business plan of having these warehouses and how everything is going to happen and comes up with how much money it would cost him. And it comes to something like $4.3 million, okay? And so the guy's like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And there's like a couple caveats in there of how they can do things and they can't do things and whatever. And he even calls at one point the Pentagon and asks this guy if you can own one of these jets. And the guy's like, yeah, but they just can't be like, you have to like break down the stuff. They can't be actually used to like be fighter jets. Which is funny because later they show the same guy that says you can't own a fighter jet when this guy called him and said you could. So anyway, so they kind of like forget all this, and John gets kind of like disappointed with it, but he finds a loophole, okay, in looking at the catalog. And the loophole is that you can buy points for 10 cents each. And he breaks it down financially, and the breakdown is that they can buy this fighter jet for $700,000 when the fighter jet is actually worth $32 million. So, okay, that's a $31,300,000 increase in salary in income that you would make off of winning this fighter jet, right? Okay. So he goes back to this Todd guy, and the Todd guy who just is like, I love him so much as a person. And he's like, let's do it. Let's do it, right? So he writes the check, and I mean, the whole story is so cool. Like this John guy goes to Minneapolis to the headquarters. He like puts the check in the P.O. box and whatever. Well, Pepsi ends up not cashing a check and sending it back to Todd, and then they send John 2 cases of free Pepsi for like trying, right? Like they won't fulfill their obligation of giving him this fighter jet. So anyway, the whole documentary goes then into this legal battle, and they get attorneys involved and all this kind of stuff. And there's actually this judge that gets appointed to it. And they go in and they talk about how she is. She won't grant them to have a jury of their peers. She won't let them do depositions of Pepsi executives when one of the Pepsi executives, who is the guy that was in charge of marketing, basically says, yeah, Pepsi screwed up. They should never have done this advertisement without having a disclosure on the advertisement. And they actually later, they post the same ad in Canada, but they do the disclosure on it. They also come out with a different ad later, and they change the point value from 7 million points to 700 million points. So they know that they screwed up, and it's like evidence that they screwed up, right? So they go before this judge, and basically the judge just wants to write this legal standard and prove that she knows more than them. And so she grants in favor of Pepsi and says that anybody could tell. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? And you're so rooting for this John guy through the entire thing. I mean, I really kind of thought he was going to get his jet. I really did. And they interview all these people, like just public people, and people are like, yeah, the kid deserves his jet. They should give him his jet, you know? And then you see these Pepsi executives, and they're like, yeah, well, I mean, did he really think he was going to get his jet? Well, did you really think by putting this ad up with no disclosure on there? You know, I mean, it's bad marketing. It really, really is. It's, you know, and it's breach of contract is what it is. Absolutely 100% breach of contract. You can tell watching this documentary. And so, and the whole time that they're interviewing this John Leonard, now today, you know, like so many years later, they have this fighter jet behind him. So you kind of think maybe he's going to get this fighter jet or something. Woven between this is this very endearing story of his friendship with this guy Todd, who at one point has a brain tumor when all this is going on, like right before it starts. And then down the road, he has cancer. And there's this part that I love, and he says something in there about like he's getting ready to go and he is going to climb Mount Everest with John, and the doctors say you have to have this tumor removed. And he goes, well, I'm getting ready to, oh no, they're going to, yeah. And he goes, but I'm going to Antarctica. Like, you know, I can't right now. I'm going to Antarctica. And so he comes back, like they show at the end that he's had the tumor removed and that he's cancer-free and he's fine. He's just such a phenomenal human being, and you can just like, there's just such a light about his eyes. I just love him as a person. He's like a person that like I would love to have in my life because he's so inspiring and motivating. The friendship between he and John is so endearing, and it's really what makes this show, because it's really about two dreamers dreaming bigger than they are. And at one point, I can't remember what this guy's name, the attorney, Michael Andovetti or whatever, who is Stormy Daniels' attorney. He like really wants to get kind of like nasty about this stuff and do this nasty like marketing ad thing, which this Todd guy thinks is really blackmail. And he's like, I don't want any part of it. And so John is in this, like, you know, forced to make a decision whether he's going to go with the attorney and do what the attorney says or side with Todd, and they're going to go their own way. And he stays with his friend, which is such kind of a cool moment. And they don't win. They don't get the jet in the end. And the Pepsi executives are, you know, arrogant as hell kind of about the whole thing. But it is funny because later, the one Pepsi executive, he says something. They aren't really arrogant, but they're just kind of like, I mean, they're still kind of very condescending and like, oh, he's so silly. And why did he ever think he was going to win this or get this, you know, thing? And what's so funny is that they several times they say that all it was about was the money for him, when at one point he gets offered something like $250,000 or $750,000 and by the Pepsi executive attorneys, and he turns it down and he's like, no, like I want my jet, like I won my jet fair and square, I want my jet, and Pepsi, where's my jet, kind of thing, you know. And so anyway, at the very end, this one executive from Pepsi is talking about how his son was in law school, and he calls him and he goes, Dad, do you know about a Herring jet? That's what it is. He's like, Dad, do you know about this Herring jet thing? And he's like, how do you know about that? And he goes, it's in the law books. Like it's like a case in the law books that we study. Like, and they showed about how like in like law classrooms, like they discussed this case. And I thought like that is so cool. Like this one kid's dream at 20 years old, right? To kind of buck the system and do what he believed in it and go after his dream, right? Is now in the law books, right? Like, so he did prove something with it. I think it's cool. Personally, I think he deserved his jet. I think they should have given him his jet. I think they should have at least given him his money or something. I don't know, but I loved the story. I was so inspired by the story because it really showed me, like, in watching it, like, don't ever, like, question that your dream is stupid, or just because other people don't believe in you, that doesn't mean that there's not merit to what you want to accomplish in your life. And I just loved it. And I loved that it showed these, you know, two friends climbing mountains all these years later, you know. And I love the analogy between going after your dreams and climbing mountains anyway. You know, I remember years ago watching an Oprah episode, and this guy, like, accomplished his dream, and she said, you know, it's like, now you have to climb a bigger mountain. Now you have to dream a bigger dream. And that was kind of the whole thing for me about this docuseries. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. For me, I would absolutely 100% give this a 10 out of 10. I loved it, and I would recommend it to anybody. So anyway, if you watched it, let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.